Hey, welcome to the Simple Nutrition Podcast, a show that helps you learn practical and actual nutrition tips from an expert. I am your host, Leonila Campos, a registered dietitian with over 8 years of experience in the nutrition field.
Hey, welcome back to another episode in the Simple Nutrition Insights Podcast. I am your host, Leonila Campos, registered dietitian, and today I wanted to bring in to you more information about magnesium. So more specifically, because I talk about these minerals with my patients, my clients often. And so it came to mind about talking more about it, right? What the role is in our bodies, how can we get it, and the general recommendations for it. So first, let's start with what is magnesium, right? Magnesium is a crucial mineral, and it is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body. It supports our muscles, it supports our nerve function, it's involved in energy production, bone health. And so it is important that we adding magnesium, right? That we have magnesium, enough magnesium in our bodies for these important functions, right? But it has also been shown to help with regulating blood sugars, blood pressure, and helping in the making of proteins, bones, and DNA. So it makes sense, right? If magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical functions, how much do we need? Right, and it depends on the age group. I am in the show notes. I'm adding an article from the National Institute of Health that talks about the specific recommendations depending on age and gender. To give you an idea here, right? Men need, or is recommended to get about 400 to 420 milligrams of magnesium a day, and then for women, it's 310 to 320 milligrams. Pregnant teens, 400 milligrams. Pregnant women, 350 to 360 milligrams. And then it has other ranges, right, from birth all the way to teens. So make sure to check that guide or to check that article that, again, I'm adding in the show notes. Now, when we think about, and I've mentioned these in previous episodes where I talked about vitamins. I did two separate episodes on water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins. Now it comes to me that I should do another episode on just minerals, right? Trace minerals. So I'll make sure to add that to my notes. But for this purpose, right, of today's episode on magnesium, food first, right? Because we know that when we add food containing this mineral, let's say magnesium, we're not only going to get magnesium, right? We're going to get other nutrients. If it's a fruit or a vegetable, right? We're getting fiber, we're getting other vitamins, we're getting other minerals. If it's a nut or a seed, right? We're getting other minerals too. We're getting some protein, some healthy fats, some fiber. And then our bodies get what they need, right? And then we get rid of the extra. Which is what usually happens with like vitamins, minerals. And so our bodies are able, they have that capability of, okay, let's digest the food, let's absorb it. Okay, we have enough. This is extra. Let's get rid of it, right? Our kidneys play a huge role, as well as our liver, in that detoxification and getting rid of the excess things. It is different with supplements, right? Again, because they're not really directly regulated by the FDA. And so a supplement can say, oh, it has this much magnesium, right? But it might have other things. And so it is really important to, number one, make sure that the supplement that you're getting is from a reputable source, right? It has been third-party tested. And it actually has, like, purity-wise, right? You also are talking to, and this is an important disclaimer that I'm going to give here, before taking any supplements, before taking any vitamins, you speak to your healthcare provider, you speak to your dietitian, if you're working with a dietitian, to make sure that the magnesium that you are taking is the proper magnesium, is the adequate magnesium, but also the amount, right? And to also make sure that it's not interfering with other medications, other supplements, or whatever conditions that you have, right? Again, that you're getting the right amount. So always make sure to speak to your healthcare provider or your dietitian if you're working with a dietitian. But where do we get magnesium from? Specifically foods, right? And I created a very nice handout for you that you can download in the show notes. It's going to be there. Just click on it and you should be able to access it. If you cannot access it for whatever reason, in the podcast, I haven't checked Spotify, but there's a new feature in Apple Podcasts where it says send us a text, right? So if for some reason you're not able to access it, send me a text and then I can send it to you directly. But in that handout, you're going to see what magnesium-rich foods are there, right? So leafy green vegetables, right? For example, spinach, kale, Swiss chard is rich in magnesium and other nutrients, right? You can add those as part of your meals. You can also find magnesium in other amazing minerals like selenium, zinc, in your nuts and your seeds like almonds, cashews, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, Brazil nuts. And again, they provide a good amount of magnesium along with other healthy fats and protein and other minerals. Whole grains like brown rice, quinoa, oats, whole wheat bread that are not only going to provide magnesium, but they're also going to provide fiber, other vitamins, right, other minerals. And so adding them to legumes, right, like black beans, lentils, chickpeas are high in magnesium, fiber, and plant-based protein, right? So you want to add, even if you don't follow a plant-based diet or nutrition plan, you want to add legumes, right, on a consistent basis to get this magnesium, but also to get that good amount of fiber. Fish, right? Your fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, halibut also have a good source of magnesium and omega-3 fatty acids, right? So it's another source to add that. Avocados also provide magnesium, healthy fats, along with other vitamins and minerals. For my chocolate lovers, dark chocolate contains a significant amount of magnesium and antioxidants. So adding, a small amount can also give you those benefits. Bananas also, when you think about minerals, right? And we think about what food is high in potassium, bananas come to mind first. But they're also a good source of magnesium. Yogurt also offers magnesium and probiotics for gut health. You see quite a variety and range of different foods, right? Now, oftentimes, I get asked, okay, so if you're telling me that if I only eat nuts and seeds, right? If I only eat beans, I am going to get all the magnesium that I need. The answer is yes and no, right? You are going to get a good amount of magnesium, but don't only eat that one food, right? Because then you're going to you might be deficient in other nutrients because they're only focusing on that specific food. The idea here is to add a variety of these foods, right? Add them on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, where you're making these well-rounded, really balanced meals, right? That you're adding all these nutrients to get not only the magnesium that you're needing, but many other nutrients, right? Your vitamins, your minerals, your fiber, your protein, your healthy fats. And so that's what a balanced meal is. So adding a variety of these foods, right, you can get the magnesium that you need. Now, if for some reason, right, there are some conditions that need extra magnesium. And those are like if you're having stomach issues, right? If you have celiac disease or irritable bowel syndrome, right? Or any malabsorption conditions that requires more magnesium, right? This is where working with your healthcare provider, working with your dietitian, right? To make sure that if you are having some of these issues, that you're getting those nutrients, and not only, most likely there are other nutrients that you might be deficient in because there's malabsorption, right? You're not absorbing the nutrients properly. As I mentioned, right? Crohn's disease, celiac disease, IBS, because it reduces the absorption of magnesium due to that inflammation in the intestinal lining. Now, here is another thing too. And I mentioned these in the past, in a few previous episodes, right? Sometimes I have clients that say, I am lactose intolerant and I get diarrhea, I get these really stomach cramps and like these like it's bad, right? I get so bloated, but I still eat it, right? I still have cheese and I still have yogurt. I might have diarrhea for a few days and then I get better and then I'll go back and eat it again. Now, it might not be severe, right? But imagine what that is doing to your stomach lining, right? Because creating this inflammation, right, in the stomach lining, that there has to be, like, your body is sending, right, little fighters there to fight whatever that is, which is the lactose, right? And then it has to heal, right? Then there's this cascade of healing, and you're allowing it to heal for a couple of days, right? Maybe over the weekend, and then you're like, ooh, let's have more cheese or let's have more milk or more dairy, and then that whole process starts again. So it's like this cycle, right? And the lining of your stomach doesn't heal all the way through because you keep adding these foods that you're not tolerant to, right? You're not tolerating these foods. So even though you're not having like a full-blown allergic reaction, right, where you have anaphylaxis and you have hives, your body's still responding in a way, right, it creates inflammation. The thing here is that you avoid, right, if you're having issues, you try to eliminate whatever the cause is to allow your GI system to heal. Now, there's some caution here too, right? Because if you in the past were tolerating, let's say, lactose, right, and something happened, or you went in a period of really high levels of stress, which there's so much research out there that shows that extreme high levels of stress really affect the GI health. And so we were able to tolerate some foods. And now, because we're in so much inflammation, now for some reason we can't, right? It's different, right? We might have to eliminate that for a moment, allow the stomach to heal, and then reintroduce slowly to see what tolerance you have. But again, you have to really work with a professional. You have to work with your dietitian with, if you're having these issues. You cannot just like go about like try or like follow someone that has no credentials, no background information, no education, right, to really guide you in a safe way. Anyway, a little sidetrack there. Some other populations that might have some magnesium deficiencies, right, that people that have diabetes because of the increased urinary of magnesium, especially in those people that have poor control blood sugar levels, right? And I haven't done an episode on diabetes because I want to bring in an expert in diabetes, and so that should be coming up. But uncontrolled blood sugars, uncontrolled diabetes, it's not only going to affect magnesium, but it's also going to affect our cardiovascular system, our eyesight, and our kidneys, right? When I worked at the dialysis center, the two leading causes of kidney failure are diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, and uncontrolled high blood pressure, right? And it's devastating to see that, right? That we don't think about not controlling my blood sugars. Well, it's okay. My mom had it, my dad had it, my sister had it, and they were fine, right? Because we kind of normalized it in our brains. But there's so many consequences that come to not having controlled blood sugars. But in terms of magnesium, that's one of them. Uncontrolled blood sugars can lead to increased urinary excretion of magnesium. So there might be a deficiency there. Someone that has chronic kidney disease, right, again, because of the impaired kidney function, that can lead to the loss of magnesium through urine. Or conversely, right, because of the kidney issues, can lead to an inability to excrete excess magnesium. And so can go both ways. Alcoholism, so one, usually heavy drinkers, right, alcohol drinkers are not going to have good nutrition in general. They're not going to have, usually they skip meals, right? They're not eating enough. So we're not already getting enough magnesium coming in from foods, but also the increased urinary excretion. Gastrointestinal issues, right, that come with alcoholism that can lead to low magnesium levels. Because when we think about where alcohol is absorbed, it is absorbed in the stomach, right? And so alcohol is a poison, right? To our bodies, it is a poison. Everything else kind of stops in order for that poison to try to get rid of it as fast as we can, right? The liver, the kidneys, all our functions slow down, right? Because these organs are working so hard trying to get rid of it. Prolonged diarrhea and vomiting can also have a significant loss of electrolytes, right? And magnesium is part of electrolytes. And so if we're losing it at a significant high rate because we're having consistent diarrhea or having consistent vomiting, which means, right, that we're not able to eat enough to replenish that magnesium, then we can be deficient there, right? That can be super dangerous too. Certain medications like diuretics, right, to help us lose excess fluids can also create that magnesium deficiency. Proton pump inhibitors, antibiotics like aminoglycosides, and certain chemotherapy drugs, right, that can also affect magnesium by increasing the excretion or reducing the absorption of magnesium. So again, there's different reasons, right, that can affect our magnesium and the deficiency of it. Malnutrition is another one, usually because, again, we're not getting enough to eat, right, enough ways to bring in magnesium into our bodies. We're not fueling properly when there's malnutrition. Hyperaldosteronism. Oh my gosh, it's such a long word. Hyperaldosteronism is an increase in excretion of magnesium due to the hormonal imbalances. So this has to do with our hormones, aldosterone, and pancreatitis, right? Inflammation of the pancreas. Again, that can interfere with the magnesium absorption, and it increases the loss. So these are some of the things that can affect the absorption of magnesium. Now, there are also some conditions, right, that can lead to excess in magnesium. So one of them is renal failure, because the kidneys are kind of in charge of that, right? Acid-base balance, electrolyte balance, and magnesium is one of them. And so when there's kidney failure, right, our kidneys play a huge role in maintaining balance, right? And detoxification and so many other functions. And so if we're having kidney failure, right, renal failure, the kidneys are unable to excrete that excess magnesium, and that can lead to accumulation in the body. Hypothyroidism, because of the reduced renal clearance of magnesium, can lead to also higher levels in the body, so being cautious about that. Adrenal insufficiency, like Addison's disease, right, because it leads to the reduced ability to excrete magnesium, or just excessive magnesium intake, right? We're overusing supplements, right? We're like having these mega doses, or we're using laxatives or antacids, right? And so that can lead to elevated levels of magnesium in the blood, because more is not always good, right? And it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast this morning about vitamin D and the new guidelines for it, and how when the pandemic started, right, there was like this trend. And I remember a few patients actually, using these supplements like a cocktail of vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc, right, on a daily basis, like higher doses, right? And so the doctors that we're talking about in the podcast, they say it's not recommended, right? It's not recommended for you to have like these mega doses of vitamin D, even if you're deficient, or because you're trying to prevent something, because it can accumulate in the body, especially vitamin D, right? It's a fat-soluble vitamin. And so we are going to store it in our muscle cells. We're going to store it in the liver. And so you can definitely get high amounts that are not needed. Same thing with magnesium, specifically as it comes from supplements, right? I mentioned food, right? We have these, if we're adding them in a variety of meals, right? If we have this higher amount of magnesium, our bodies are, for the most part, going to get rid of it, right? If we're not having more of these clinical conditions like kidney failure, where we really have to be restrictive, right? And really, really pay attention as to what we eat, because an organ that the role of that organ is, it's failing. Now we have to rely on dialysis, right, to be able to do that job. But that's totally different. Another possible reasons for higher levels of magnesium in the blood is lithium therapy, because it can interfere with renal excretion of magnesium. So if someone is taking lithium, right, or related therapy, and they're taking excess amounts of magnesium in a supplement form, checking with your doctor, right, to make sure that your levels are where they need to be. So that leads us to how can we monitor, right? How can we manage magnesium levels? Specifically, again, if you are more so, like oftentimes they're not checked unless if there is a clinical indication. So if you're in the category where I talked about deficiencies, right, the possible conditions that can lead to deficiencies like Crohn's disease, celiac disease, diabetes, then asking your doctor, right, can we check my magnesium levels, right? So doing like regular blood tests. But you can also kind of do a double check yourself, right? Okay, I'm taking, these high doses of magnesium over 300 milligrams, and I'm also being intentional about having my high magnesium foods. Okay, maybe we need to be cautious there, and either if we're really consistent with magnesium, with our magnesium high rich foods, maybe we don't even need a supplement, right? Because we are using an app, right, that tracks our food intake, and I'm seeing that every day I'm hitting my goal. Okay, and then we probably don't need the extra from the supplements, right? And that's one of the ways that you can know if you're having enough. Now, we don't absorb it 100%, right? Just like anything, we usually don't absorb anything 100%, with the exception of eggs. Eggs it's a protein that almost absorbs 100%, but not quite, right? And there's other components, there's other factors that can affect absorption. If you're eating, right, coming from food, if you're eating more than 300 milligrams, then it's fine, right? Because then we have to play, then the absorption comes into play, right? But not from supplements, right? The supplements we do have to be more cautious about. Doing a medication review, right, with your doctor, with your pharmacist, to make sure that what you're taking is not interacting, it's not having a negative effect, right? When you're taking all these supplements, these medications, making sure that you're ensuring adequate hydration, right, and electrolyte balance, especially if you're an athlete. If you're an endurance athlete, if you're exercising for over 60 minutes, or if you live in an area where it's like really humid and it's hot, right, and you're an athlete again, you're sweating so much, you're losing these electrolytes, right? Magnesium is one of them. So replenishing them might be a good idea. Okay, now that's that part of just magnesium in general, right? All the role of magnesium in our bodies, possible deficiencies or excess in magnesium. I also wanted to give you, in that specific handout that I created for you, the different types of magnesium that are out there. Because I do get this question often, right? Like, well, which magnesium? And this is after my patients and I have talked about, right? And I decide, okay, maybe we should add one for a period of time and see how things go, see how you feel. Maybe because our nutrition is not where it needs to be yet. And the supplement, right? Again, as the name says it, a supplement. Let's supplement your nutrition with something temporary until we are able to get your nutrition where we want it to be. So there's a ton of magnesium combinations out there now. And so I'm not going to go into every single one, but you will have it in that specific handout that you'll find in the show notes. So absolutely go over it, take a look at that. So if you're taking a magnesium and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking the wrong one, maybe I should speak to my dietitian, or maybe I should talk to my healthcare provider and see which one works best for me. So here we go. Types of magnesium. There is magnesium citrate, right? It's highly bioavailable, meaning that you're absorbing it at a pretty good amount. And it's often used to improve magnesium levels and relieve constipation. Then there is magnesium oxide, right? It's high elemental magnesium, meaning that is magnesium by itself, right? It's in its own element. However, there is lower bioavailability, and it usually is used to treat heartburn and indigestion. Then we have magnesium glycinate, which is high bioavailable, is more gentle on the stomach. It has been shown to help with, it has calming effects, right? So it helps with anxiety, insomnia, muscle cramps. That's magnesium glycinate. And then we have magnesium chloride, which is well absorbed, tends to correct deficiencies, and oftentimes is used topically right outside for muscle pain. And then we have magnesium malate, which supports energy production, relieves muscle pain and fatigue. So oftentimes is used for that specifically, for fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. And then we have magnesium L-threonate, which crosses the blood-brain barrier, supports cognitive function. Main uses are for brain health, memory enhancement. And then we have magnesium taurate, which supports cardiovascular health, combines magnesium with taurine, which is an amino acid, and has been the uses right for our heart health, blood pressure regulation. And then there's this one here, right? Magnesium sulfate, right? Like Epsom salt. So not to eat them, but you can use them in baths, right? For muscle relief. I think in the hospitals, maybe they use it in an IV form to correct severe deficiencies. So it is used for muscle soreness, inflammation, eclampsia, and severe deficiencies, usually specifically for like endurance runners, right? Or endurance athletes, or after a really long race and you have like these, and even if you're doing weight training, right? And you're really working your legs and you have like lots of soreness on your legs, soaking yourself, right, in Epsom salt can help with the muscle soreness. And again, there's many more there that you can take a look. But again, the first thing that I would suggest doing, right, if you are already taking magnesium, look at the magnesium that you're taking, right? Ask yourself, am I taking this magnesium for this specific reason? Or maybe just because someone recommended it and like, I don't even have the problem, right? Ask yourself that question. And then number two, if you haven't had your physical or if you haven't spoken to your healthcare provider, right, and you have a doctor's appointment coming up and you're concerned about your magnesium for a specific reason, you can always request it, right, and ask, I would like to see what my magnesium levels are. And then your healthcare provider can make that decision. But, if the appointment is not pretty soon, right, and you're like, okay, I know that I should be having these foods, right? I went over them and you're like, I hardly eat any of those foods, right? So there could be a possibility that we're not getting enough magnesium. So the first thing to do there, right? Okay, let's start changing some of my nutrition by adding some of these foods, right? A variety of these foods, at least, 3 to 4 times a week. And then as I get used to, I can add them on a daily basis. And again, focus on those foods, right? Focus on adding these magnesium-rich foods because you're not only going to get magnesium, right? You're going to get so many other minerals, so many other vitamins, and many other nutrients, right, that our bodies need and benefit. And so before you can go out and like, let me just add a whole bunch of supplements, right, that you might not even need. So start there first. And then make sure that the magnesium that, if you decide to take a magnesium supplement is the right one and that is from a reputable source, right? It's third-party tested. If you start taking it, right, and you have the side effects, whatever the side effects are, eliminate it and then add it again to make sure that it is that specific thing. And then you can talk to your healthcare provider about it. If you are having an intolerance and maybe you need to find a different one or a different way to add your magnesium. All right, my friends. So today we talked about magnesium. We talked about the role of magnesium in our bodies. It plays a role over 300 biochemical functions. We talked about where you can get magnesium from, right? You can find the list in the handout that I'm giving you. We talked about the recommendation, right, for different age groups and gender or sex. And we talked about the different types of supplements, right, that are out there that have magnesium and the possible conditions that can cause a deficiency in magnesium or that could cause an excess in magnesium, hypermagnesemia. So there's that. Use that information, share it with a friend. If you think that this episode was helpful, don't forget to leave a review for me. That helps me as well. And that is it. So stay safe, my friends. Stay strong. And I will see you and talk to you in another episode. Bye-bye for now.
This podcast, the links and resources provided are for the purpose to educate only and are not a replacement for medical advice or nutrition therapy. I suggest you seek out the help of a trained professional to help you with your specific situation and needs.